Kaswai, thank you so much. A swale, thank you. How was the lunch? Woo! I was busy visiting, and I managed to have some of the delicious salmon as we were getting ready for this panel. It is my honor to support and engage in this panel discussion today. Teresa Carlson was intending to moderate, but couldn't be with us, so I was thrilled to be able to step up and support this conversation. And that's really what I hope this will be. We've got two incredible panelists, leaders, community and cultural leaders and advisors with us. And we hope this to be a conversation where stories and insights and perspectives from different and diverse lenses can be shared. Paula, thank you for lunch. Thank you to you and your team. Can you share the story of the food that we enjoyed today, and how did you prepare it?
Today you had barbecued salmon that was cooked over a fire, and that's the traditional way of cooking the salmon. Rice, basic rice is usually what we serve with it. Vegetable medley. I do have to say that I spent a lot of money on vegetables. I've never done that before. Yeah, and the bannock my sister made. That's traditional. I believe way back when they used to cook it over the fire on a stick, but now we're a little more modern and deep fry it or cook it in oil. What else? Yeah, just that was our meal.
And as you prepared the meal and helped guide that journey, did you have any insights from your own life, lived experience, and community?
I started cooking at a very young age in our longhouse. So I would start. Well, it was my mother who taught me how to cook, and all of us children were cooking at a very young age for our whole family. And I'm the youngest of 11, so we were put in that kitchen and learned how to cook. So yeah, when I was about 13, I started helping my grandmother, in the longhouse cooking, and sometimes we'd be cooking for anywhere from 50 people to, our longhouse is the largest in the valleys, and it fits over 900 people, and we've cooked for that many before. So, and I am not the only caterer out there.
Well, thank you again. It was delicious. Murray, do you have any experiences in your family, in your community, around food preparation as well as technology?
Yeah. Well, I think Paula spoke to it already in terms of the opportunity. When I think about fish is two things. It's both a noun and a verb. So I always appreciate the good food that our matriarchs and our women can take care of us that way. But there's one thing about fish, it's the ability to eat it, but it's another one to be able to go out and catch it. And that's so important to our people, to be able to not only catch it, but cook it and have the time with your family and your cousins and friends. So that's the important thing. And when Paula talks about cooking over an open fire, this takes some time. You can do it, you can make it last all day or half a day. And so it depends how much time you want to spend with your family and friends. But that's the important part of the culture of fish.
The relationality between people and community and the food that we eat and the animals that are also part of our universe and that holistic perspective. So thank you both for sharing those insights. How can we honor and support the revitalization of Stalo culture and food production in British Columbia and beyond? And Murray, perhaps you can answer this question first, and then we'll ask Paula to provide her perspectives.
Yeah, it's a pretty loaded question, and I think where I would go with it is you need healthy waters, you need healthy land, you need healthy resources to be productive. And it's one of the things we recognize in our territory right now. If you look at what we call the Sumas River is the remnant of the Samath, which is the former Sumas Lake. And as much as I'd like to eat a fish out of there, I don't think I would. And so we need that kind of cooperation to bring that health back to those waters, not only for people, but also for the fish to return to our area. And, you know, we're Samath, but we're also Stalo, and we're also Coast Salish. Stalo has two meanings. One is people of the river, which we are. We also had a lake, so we're people of the lake as well, but we were lucky enough to be situated by a lake as well as not too far away from the Fraser River. So we are people of the river. The other meaning for Stalo is the river of all rivers, which is currently called the Fraser. So maybe one day they'll change it back to Stalo. But anyways, I just wanted to share that. And I think in terms of bringing back the traditions, bringing back the opportunity for the resources that were previously there, we need healthy water, we need healthy land.
Thank you. Paula, do you have anything to share?
I just want to, acknowledge what Murray said. That was my father's saying is, you need to take care of Mother Earth and her waterways, and that's what I always teach, especially children, is if we don't take care of her, we're going through climate change, we're going through all these different changes in our lifetime, where we had, when I was a young girl, we had plenty of fish. We would be at the river and you'd see them jumping. You don't see that now. Our waters are too warm, and they're depleting.
Thank you both for sharing those perspectives. Traditional Stalo knowledge can play a role in sustainable food production, and we've talked a little bit about that already. How can Stalo knowledge be integrated with modern agricultural practices to ensure both food security and cultural preservation? Murray?
These are loaded questions. They sound like 2 or 3 in one, but I work for an organization called the Lower Fraser Fisheries Alliance, and it's a group of nations from the mouth of the Fraser to Yale. And frankly, just getting those nations to agree on one form of fishery is a real challenge, because everybody has their own way of fishing within their own territories. So when we're talking about Indigenous knowledge, it will be associated by where one lives, how close they live to the river. And when we're talking about Western science, 2 different things altogether, right? Western science, to me, is the driver for decision-making and the development of policy. And Indigenous knowledge is yet to be incorporated into that kind of work. We're hoping one day soon it will be, because if we feel we have enough scientists within our own nations, within our own Lower Fraser area, that would really help support the Western science. And so I hope I answered the question, but I think I was close.
I think you did. Paula, do you have anything to share on that?
No.
And he did such a great job. So, collaboration, we've talked a lot about that today. Innovation, collaboration, community building, and it's integral to sustainability and to land stewardship. What partnerships or programs, in your perspective, in your experience, and in your community, exist to foster that collaborative spirit with Indigenous communities?
Thanks. I think working together is the key, with governance and municipal bodies. Fighting each other for our lands and who's where is quite difficult, and building relationships is part of healing, and not only for us as human beings, but for Mother Earth. If we can't come together as one and work together and build a relationship where we can move forward, I don't think there's a chance out there if we can't come together and start. I don't know. maybe I didn't answer the question, but you know, we talk about saving Semá Mountain, you know, from the mines, and there was so much wildlife at one time up there. You know, my father would hunt, and all our ancestors would hunt where Yale School is, and it's all houses now, and now we have to you know, travel farther to hunt for our traditional foods. You know, respecting our fishing grounds. You know, we had our fishing grounds were filled with silt after they built a dike years ago, and you know, that's just open conversations and communication and working together.
Working together and learning together.
Yes.
And also unlearning.
Yes.
Unlearning perhaps some Western and colonial practices and ways that have had an impact. Murray, do you have anything to share on that question?
Yeah, sure. And the key thing about collaboration is what triggers people to work together. And in the work that I've done, one of the first things that the nations noticed in 2009, there was a complete collapse of sockeye. There was a projection of 10 million fish that were supposed to return to the Fraser River. And everybody got excited. They said, "Oh, great! We'll have access for food, social, and ceremonial. Not only that, we'll have economic development. We'll be able to sell some of our fish as well and provide for the community and the nation." But what happened is only 1.2 million fish returned. Total crisis. Our food, social, and ceremonial needs weren't met, and nor was there an opportunity to make a little bit of money by selling their fish. So I think, you know, for us is recognition of the crisis that is occurring in our lands and in our waters. When I think about the Semá and the crisis of Pacific salmon today, all 5 salmon species are in trouble, right? Why did they empty the lake? Why did they take the lake away? And we're wondering about that. For habitat today, if we had that lake, there certainly would have been opportunity for fish to be returning in greater abundance than they are. So all that to say, I think whether you're a stakeholder, whether you're with government, whether you're with First Nations, we've got to realize that we do have crisis on our hands. It's nice to get together and talk about productivity and economics and I guess growth and development. But there is a crisis going on outside of that world. And if you're able to recognize that, it's really easy to work together.
I think that's an important message for us all. You know, we've talked a little bit about climate change and the crisis. I think about public health as well. In my perspective and in my experience, and from what we enjoyed today, traditional Indigenous foods are often more nutritious and ecologically sustainable. How can we promote the consumption of these foods for the benefit of public health and for the environment and our communities? Paula?
I think just events like this, hosting events like this. You know, my family, it's rare I go out and I buy beef or chicken or pork because I myself hunt. You know, when I was approached by Gavin about this event and he talked about salmon and it was the beginning of summer, and it's like, okay, I'll try my best to get salmon because it's hard to come by, right? So luckily I got the salmon and, you know, and yeah, just hosting events, being open to invitations to, if there's something happening on Semá, and a nation, you know, feel free to attend that ceremony or whatever it may be that you may get invited to.
And food and enjoying food together in community is such an important part of that cultural experience and celebration, and to honor where the food comes from, how it's prepared, and also how we experience it and enjoy it together.
Yeah, when we, there's certain certain ways we do prepare food, like especially, like we got death protocols, we have, there's longhouse protocol, you know, real spiritual protocols that we follow when there's certain ceremonies happening for the preparation of the food. And, you know, we got, it's really important to us having family and friends. You know, that's what we do is we open our doors and we, you know, for missing family, you know, oh, I'm putting a salmon on, I'm barbecuing a fish, and you'll get the whole neighborhood if they find out, you know, and that's building relationships and keeping that bond with your community and your family and friends.
Thank you for sharing that. Murray, do you have anything to add to this?
One thing important that Paula mentioned is the ability to share, but first of all, you have to have abundance. And I don't mean to bring a downer into the afternoon, but you have to have abundance to be able to share. And what Paula mentioned to me was really important is we had eight days of fishing from January until this very day on the Fraser main stem. So she was able to put some fish away so she could share with you. And I think that's extremely important. The other thing I would also mention is there was a time when, you know, longhouses and our dancing and everything was prohibited. It was illegal to do so. And so for us to share that now, there is a lot of apprehension because what we share quite often at times got used against us, right? And so now this is a real good opportunity. I think it's a good environment these days to be able to open up the longhouse, open up things like the salmon ceremonies, other cultural events, so we can share with people to give them a better understanding of who we are and where we come from.
Thank you. And I think food and gathering together and enjoying it together is a human experience, and it's a community experience. So thank you for sharing your perspectives and your teachings and your wisdom with us. I think we're all going to take that knowledge away today as we think about the salmon and the vegetables and the bannock that we were able to enjoy. So we're learning here today. We're connecting, we're collaborating, and we're learning. And education and knowledge sharing are key components of revitalization efforts as well as reconciliation. What educational initiatives or efforts that you've been involved with can help pass down Stalo or Indigenous food-related knowledge to younger generations? Would you like to take that one first, Murray?
I will, and it is a real challenge, and I'll use fishing as an example. You can tell I'm into fishing and water. It's part of my job. But it is a real challenge, and to share with the youth, as an elder now, I guess I'm getting close to 60, a junior elder. But you want to hand down what you know down to your kids and your grandkids. I've got two boys that are 30 and 33. They know how to fish and they know how to get out there. But the reality is not everybody wants to make that investment to go out fishing for 8 days out of the year. They don't want to buy a boat. They may not want to buy a boat. They may not want to buy the fishing gear to do so. So where I'm going with this is it's a real challenge to be able to share from one generation to the next, and we're actually losing our culture because of it. I did a bit of a quantification thing to demonstrate that, and in the 1990s, we fished 3 days a week, every week, 52 weeks out of the year. An ability to go out at your leisure, fish hard if you needed to, or take a day off on one of those weekends, right? And when I fast forward to today's fisheries, as I mentioned, 8 days we had up until today. We'll get another 8 days at the end of this month for chum fishing, and that's about 16 or 17 days. So when I compare the 1990s to today's fisheries, it's about 10%. 10% access to the fishery and to the river. So in a sense, I'm losing 90% of who I am. And my cultural identity is gone with it too, right? And so when I think about my grandkids, when I think about friends and family to be able to share, I really got to make a hard effort to make those 8 days count and the subsequent 8 days. So the ability to share is really important now, and we're at a cultural crisis in terms of our connection to the river and our connection to each other and our identity. And I'll share one last thing is, so I mentioned not everybody's going to go out and buy a boat and a truck and go fishing, but we do have significant fishers we might even call them salmon warriors within our regime, that will go out and they'll fish for the community, because we know that there's not everybody's going to be buying a boat and going fishing, right? And we'll bring the fish back to the community for processing days. So we do this twice a year. 2 days out of the year we do this, and it's phenomenal because we get matriarchs, we get youth, we got some really good pictures of people sharing how to, cut fish, can them, smoke them, and other things. But there's a cultural disconnect, and that cultural disconnect is fish don't just arrive at your home in a truck. They come from the river. And some of our people and our youth, they're not connected to the river because of it, because we've started to do this, bring the fish home. And so we're recognizing that cultural disconnect from the Fraser, from the Stallo. And what we're thinking now is if you want fish, you're going to have to come down to the river. Come down and help. Maybe we'll cut the fish down there. Maybe you'll help load the fish. And maybe we'll have a gathering. Maybe we'll have a barbecue or things like that. We'll invite other people. So I just wanted to share it's the importance of sharing, number one, but also the disconnect. You have to be careful with your own culture.
Thank you for sharing that perspective. And I've been really fortunate and blessed in my life that my dad and my uncles and my brother love to fish and also hunt. And I acknowledge that I'm a Western woman with a Eurocentric background, but I have had the privilege of enjoying fish caught and taken care of in a good way. And I think about my personal benefit to that, but also sharing that knowledge with my own children and my Western perspective. So thank you for sharing your lens and your wisdom so that I can now share that with my children as well. Thank you. Paula, do you have anything to share on that topic?
Yes, seeing the disconnect with the youth. I used to work with the Abbotsford School District, and I stepped away for personal reasons, and I started my own journey, and that was I took a bunch of youth and I approached my brother and I asked him, can you teach these young guys how to smoke salmon? And we did that during COVID. We had an annex school on a reserve, and all the students came and they cleaned the salmon, and they learned the ways of how to smoke that salmon the old traditional way. And they were quite proud and pleased with their accomplishments, and they had to go in that longhouse and that smokehouse, and they had to hang those fish. And when you're hanging, there's slime dripping down, but they had to go, he's like, you're going up there, that's part of the job. So I take, I'm quite pleased with that little teaching that I help with. But I also start taking my grandchildren, and they're really young, they're Marie's nephews too, hunting. I have 3 adult boys, and they kind of hunt, but they don't want to. And me as a woman, my place, in my father's eyes, my place was in the kitchen. And I had to fight for my fishing rights, and I had to fight for my hunting rights. And it was very, very big. And it took me quite a few years to earn that right to fish and hunt. So I'm proud to say that I've been the only one, my husband hasn't gotten any, to provide the food for the home. Every year, we're preparing for the year and hunting seasons now. So we're preparing to go up to Cranbrook and get our elk. And I get a permitted hunt from one of the nations up there. And usually I trade salmon, not this year. You ate it.
We're very grateful.
So I started hunting, taking my grandkids, and the one is 6 and the one is 9, and I took them out for the first hunt. They're not quite ready, but I want to start them young, and teach them the ways of respecting, the young one. Oh, we're going to kill. It's like, no, we're harvesting. We're preparing. We're preparing for the winter months, the hard months, and if we can, we'll share our bounty if we get something. And they were quite pleased and quite proud of being able to go hunt, and they're learning how to fish too. They got fishing poles now, so they're waiting to get out there and fish. So yeah, so I'm working on my grandchildren, and if I can, I'll reach out to other. And I get a lot of people asking me to come and teach. I've taught about traditional foods with the special education specialist before. I've taught a workshop in Maple Ridge.
That's where I'm from.
And yeah, so I try and teach whenever I can, and carry my father's legacy on, like he calls it. He didn't know how to cook though. Yeah, so I'm continuously trying to teach the youth because I see the disconnect.
Well, thank you for teaching the youth in your own family, and with this kind of honored and cultural focus and wisdom, we can share that and carry that knowledge seven generations into the future. So thank you for sharing that with us. We have time, I believe, for one or two questions. I believe there's mics in the room. Tyler, you've got one? Okay.
We have time for two questions, but the power of having the mic is I'm going to ask one of them.
Oh, okay.
Because I got the mic and no one can stop me at this point. Paula, you were telling me some cool stories yesterday. I've seen people around this room sampling some of that wind-dried salmon that's been going around. I know we have stuff on the table. I was hoping you could just talk a bit about what people were experiencing and what's in that one-pager on the table, please.
The wind-dried salmon. It's also called sleetzus. It is a delicacy to us. You're quite fortunate to have that. I actually got that for my father's memorial. My father passed away in 2016, but we had a memorial within the last year. And for some reason, it just did not make it down there, so I had it sitting at home, and when Gavin called, I thought it was a great opportunity to teach about some of our traditional foods. So that, it's an acquired taste. My grandkids were quite upset when they seen it going out the door. Don't worry, I still have some at home. That's processed in, and it's really hard to do these nowadays because of limited fishing. And you have to do these, the preparation of wind-dried when it's really hot and windy, and it's only in the canyon, and where it's really hot, dry, and windy. Want to add more?
Thank you for sharing that, that teaching with us.
And thank you for sharing the salmon.
Exactly.
So I'm happy to take another question. This one I won't just hold on to the mic. I'll still hold on to it, but I'll allow somebody else to ask the question if someone has a
I
hand
think
up.
Stefania has a question.
Okay, coming to you.
Thank you so much for these insights today. I've kind of a cheeky two-part question. One is, do you do anything with the salmon, like skins, when you go home? And two, I was wondering, Murray, if you could speak more about the amazing initiative that you've just launched about like surveying material and video to capture salmon populations. That whole initiative is really amazing and would be useful to maybe hear about.
The salmon skins, they'll probably just hit the garbage. I have no dogs. Unless someone has a dog, you're more than free to take it. But I've actually taught about the salmon skins, making leather out of fish skin. But it's got to be fresh salmon.
So I didn't quite catch the question, I'm sorry.
Stefania, can you ask?
I just put like some new material on like a bridge nearby to capture populations of salmon passing. Yeah, sorry.
Okay, yeah, now I got it. So again, out of crisis comes perhaps some solutions, and about 4 or 5 years ago, two things happened. I mentioned earlier that we only 8 days of fishing on the Fraser main stem. So what do we do when crisis happens? We look at alternatives. And what our alternative is going back to where we used to fish, which is within our territory, the former Semá Lake, but is also now the Sumas, Vedder, and Chilliwack system. And so before we could do that, we wanted to make sure we knew what the populations were. And so we've got what's called an ARIS, which is another word for sonar. And we implemented that 4 years ago with a 5-year plan. It's $1 million investment. And I'll call it dirty money. We got some dirty money out of Trans Mountain. And our trade-off for dirty money is getting good statistics about fish in our own traditional territories, so we can validate, number one, how many are coming back, number two, if there's opportunity to begin harvesting. And the reason why we're doing that is because the province, I don't know if we have provincial or DFO, federal colleagues in here, they weren't doing enough of it from our perspective. Matter of fact, they were using what they knew against us so that they would prohibit our opportunities. So we said, okay, well, we'll just do it ourselves. So Chief and Council supported that investment. We'll be in our 5th year this coming year in 2024. And we've got a ton of data. We talked about data and how useful that is. Well, we're going to use it to our advantage now. We don't need government.
Thank you. Thank you for that question, Stefania and Tyler. Your question allowed us all to learn a little bit more about the preparation and the stories and the cultural teachings behind the food that we were able to enjoy and learn from today. I want to thank Paula and Murray for sharing their perspectives and their wisdom with us, and thank all of you for listening and learning and maybe a little bit of unlearning. And as we wrap up, I would like to offer you a gift as a token of our appreciation. Thank you both.